Hi everyone, I'm really excited to introduce you to the Scottish Vessel project and to go through a quick tutorial of how to do the dedicated vessel watches that will contribute to the project. Ideally you should be a Shorewatch volunteer to do these watches, but it's not essential. You can upload your data to the Shorewatch database without being a Shorewatch volunteer, and ideally we ask for the watches to be done at Shorewatch sites. Any of them around Scotland would be awesome, but if you fancy doing some from home or from a different place, then you can still submit those and they'll still be valuable to the project. So you're not limited to just do these watches at Shorewatch sites. This is a collaborative community project led by Heriot-Watt University by myself. I'm Emily Haig. My supervisor is Dr. Lauren McWhinney. We're working alongside WDC, the University of Highlands and Islands Shetland campus, the Fourth Marine Mammal Group, and there's lots more community involvement that we're really excited about, and this project just keeps growing. So firstly, what is it and why are we doing this? So we're trying to get a grip and a handle on how many small vessels there are around Scotland, especially around coastal waters. It's quite easy to get this data for bigger boats if you have something called an AIS receiver, which is the data displayed on the right hand side. You can get information on vessels that are over 15 meters long. But smaller vessels don't have the same information, so that's why we're utilising you guys as Shorewatch volunteers to capture that smaller vessel data, because you're out doing watches anyway, so it'll be awesome opportunity to take advantage of you guys as well, to get you to record what vessels you're seeing as well as all the cool marine mammals that you might be seeing. So this is what the sheets look like. So you'll have your dedicated vessel watch sheet, which is on the left hand side, and then the right hand side are the boat codes with different sizes of fishing vessels, motor boats, sailing vessels. So we differentiate between sailing vessels with sails up and sailing vessels under motor, jet skis, paddle boards, etc. So these are kind of distinguished based upon the potential impacts that they might have. So they vary a little bit. So smaller fishing vessels tend to be a little bit more erratic and going all over the place, say picking up creels, going from being static to moving, whereas larger fishing vessels, the behaviour is a little bit different depending on what they're fishing for example. The same with, say, tankers, ferries and cruise ships. They're usually slower on a set course, not quite such an erratic movement. So that's why they're defined into some categories like this. I hope that they'll be easy enough to differentiate between, but if you're ever not sure, there is an option to just submit a photo with your vessel watch information, and we can help you, or just give it me or Alice an email and we can help categorize, or you can just write other and then you can give a bit of information. So the dedicated vessel watch sheets, they look full of words and scary, but let's just go through this step by step. They're not as horrible as they look on first sight. So let's go through this and let's just practice filling it in as if we were doing our imaginary watch ourselves. So let's say our location of our dedicated vessel watch was Pittenweem, the West Brace Shorewatch site. The date that we're doing it, the observer will write my name, Emily Haig. The time that I started, so I started at 3:30, and the time that I ended, so I started at, I ended at 5 o'clock. So we're asking for vessel watchers for as long as possible. Like, by all means, have a picnic, chill out, and just do 3 or 4 hour watches if you're going to be at that site for that long. You don't need to do the gaps like with the Shorewatch where you do a 10-minute watch and then 50 minutes off effort. Like the dedicated vessel watches, it all counts as on effort time, so all your time is useful, but it shouldn't be too stressful. Like, I've trialed it out and it's pretty simple. You can just note what's there and then keep checking like every 15 30 minutes to see what's changed. You record your visibility and sea state, so that's like the same setup as what you trained with Shorewatch, so there's no extra training required there. Just use those same protocols that you do for your shore watching. So the first thing that is a little bit different, the first one I'm going to ask you to do is to identify and estimate the number of creel markers, i.e. buoys, visible from your Shorewatch site. So just use your binoculars. And like you can see in that little picture up there, that's the number of creel markers that you can see from that site. So this will vary a lot over the course of the year, and it'd be really cool to get some information across Shorewatch sites about how many creels there are in the water, because that directly relates to how many ropes there are in the water and to entanglement risk for, especially for the larger whales. That's a huge risk. So it'd be cool for you guys to help us collect data on that. If you've got any questions about what does a creel marker look like, just let me know as well. It can be a little bit difficult to identify, but basically just everything that you see in the water that looks like one of those pictures, looks like a buoy in the water, that's what it is. It's going down to something underwater, which is likely going to be a creel. So now let's do the vessel watch itself. So let's imagine we were recording this vessel. So each row in your vessel watch sheet is for one boat. So if you see 5 boats, you'll fill in 5 rows. If you only see 1, or if you see no boats, then you'd fill in 1 or 0 rows, depending on how many you see. So this is, let's fill this in together. What we would record for this vessel that you can see on the video. So we first saw it when we started our vessel watch at 3:30. And what type of vessel do you think that is? So I'm going to record that as a small fishing vessel. So it's less than 15 meters long, so it's an FVS. So let's fill in the sheet with that information. So now, vessel name. You can get the vessel name with your binoculars if it's got any identifying information on it, or if it's got any sort of, some fishing boats will have like KY10 whatever, so you could write that. If you can't see a vessel name on it with your binoculars, you can use an app like Marine Traffic to see if it's transmitting its information on there, and then you might be able to get the name from Marine Traffic. But smaller vessels and recreational vessels like speedboats, etc., don't tend to transmit their information onto Marine Traffic, so this approach might not work. So if you aren't able to find a name for it and you can't see one in your binoculars, there's no identifying features, then don't worry about it. Like, the vessel type is the main thing that we need to know about, and what time you saw it. So yeah, just do your best on that front, and some vessels will be much easier to fill this column in than others. The next stop is filling in the bearing that you're seeing the vessel from the Shorewatch site. So stand at your site, use your binoculars the same way that you do with the marine mammal sighting, following your Shorewatch training, and record the bearing when you first see the vessel. Just aim for down the middle of the vessel, that'll be perfect, and record that in degrees. And then distance from Shorewatch site. So the same again as your training from Shorewatch, use your binoculars to either line it up to the sea or the land horizon and record which one you were using, and then record how many reticules from the horizon of your choice down is the vessel. So there, we've filled those in for this example sheet. And now let's think about speed, vessel activity and behaviour. So for this one, I've recorded that this vessel is pretty still. It is moving, but it's actually moving because the rope where it's pulling in the creel, which you can see just coming up now, the pressure on that rope pulling it in with the winch is moving that boat. So the boat isn't actually moving under its own steam. So we could say it was still, or we could put low. I wouldn't differentiate too much between those two for this boat in question. So the activity behaviour, I've put it's idle and it's fishing, and I've added some more information there, so it's hauling creels. And then on this right hand side, we go into whether or not we've seen it with a marine mammal. So in this case, no. Was the vessel sighted at the same time as marine mammals? The answer is no. And that means we don't need to go on to fill in the other information regarding how marine mammals were behaving around the boat. So that's it. That's your one vessel filled in. And if that's the only vessel you see, then that's your vessel watch just about done. So when you finish your vessel watch, you'll just fill in the top of the sheet again with what time you with what time you finished your vessel watch, and then you'd fill in these columns about time last seen and bearing when last seen and distance from Shorewatch height when last seen. So hopefully not quite as difficult as it looks with all this writing. So next up, let's try out another. Let's try out this video that I've taken where there's a yacht in the video, but in amongst there somewhere is also some dolphins. Did you just spot them just then? You can see them, and they're kind of on my side, Shorewatch side. And the yacht just on the right hand side. So we've filled in the time. I've filled in vessel type, which is SV, so sailing vessel. The vessel type I don't know, and I can't find it on marine traffic, and in my binoculars I'm not able to read what it says on the back of the yacht. Maybe I could fill it in later if it turns sideways on and I can see it, but unknown is absolutely fine to write. The bearing and the reticles I've filled in. Speed, it's going pretty slow. And it's sailing. No more information required than that, really. Is it sighted at the same time as marine mammals? This time it's a yes, and it's bottlenose dolphins that I see it alongside. Is there an interaction with the vessel? No, actually, I don't think there is personally. The dolphins are not going near the vessel. They've continued on the course that they were going on. Like, obviously you guys haven't seen the full encounter that I did, but the dolphins just stayed on the same course, was surfacing the same. So I can write into the question at the end, did the marine mammals behaviour change? And I've just put no reaction. So now let's have a look at one more example of how we'd fill this in. So now we're looking at a small fishing vessel again, which wasn't seen on marine traffic, but I was able to identify it from looking at the bins and looking at the information on the side of the boat. I've recorded my bearing, my distance, and that its speed is slow, but it's moving still. Yes, it was sighted at the same time as marine mammals. It was sighted, the species was killer whales. Was there an interaction with the vessel? I've now answered yes on this video. So if you watch the full video, and you can watch this back again, the vessel was on a constant course, and so were the whales, but as soon as it started veering off in different directions and slowing or decreasing its speed, the whales changed the behaviour completely, and they started going in different directions and surfacing a little bit differently. So the question is, was the interaction initiated by the vessel or the animals? So I wrote yes, it was initiated by the vessel. So the vessel actually went off its course and went towards the whales. Alternatively, you might see a case where the dolphins go towards the boat to bow ride or something like that. So in that case, the interaction was initiated by the animals, because the animals directly go towards the boat. And I've put that the behaviour changed by them changing direction. So just a note on boat activities about what they might be doing. When I was talking earlier about hauling creels, that is, I'm referring to when they haul something that captures lobsters and crabs. So you can see it just coming up out of the boat just there. They're usually on a string of about 10 different ones, and they collect or catch it and can be down for a few days at a time. That's called the soak time, so 3 or 4 days, and then the fishermen will go and pick them up, and there'll be lobsters or crabs or other bits and bobs in the creels. So fishing can look quite different for different boats. That's kind of just what I wanted to point out here, that this still counts as fishing, but it just looks a little bit different than seeing, say, a net hanging out of the back from trawling. all mackerel fishing or stood with pole and line, or so it's yeah, don't worry too much if you can't identify it, but just do your best, is all I can ask for, really. So just have a look at this image and think about what you'd record for the behavior here. This one, I learnt my lesson on this one. There's also a dolphin in the picture. So for this one, the behavior is actually that it's at anchor. So you can see here this identifying chain coming down. So that means it's at anchor. So though you can see it's still switched on because there's some fumes coming out of the exhaust. But yeah, so it poses a different impact potentially to marine mammals than it would if it was moving, if it's at anchor. And there's a little dolphin. It was a pretty cool picture by Charlie Phillips there from WDC. So the code that I'd choose for this, so sorry, on this slide I want you to go through what code would you choose for each of these vessels. So we've got A and B and C, so just have a think about that. And then so for A, I would say large tanker, so that's going to be VLV, very large vessel. B and C, I think that they both potentially look like they're over 15 meter long vessels, fishing vessels, sorry, so it'd be FVL. It doesn't have to be perfect, like these potentially could be under 15 meters, but just do your best. Or D and E, have a think about what you'd put there. So for D, this is a sailing vessel under motor, so you can see that it's got a wake behind it, so that means it's moving under engine power rather than sail, which means it's transmitting underwater noise from a motor. So it's important to differentiate between whether it's sailing with its sails up or if it's sailing under motor. And then E is, I would say, a fishing vessel, small, so I think this one's possibly under 15 meters, so I'd put FVS for this one. Next up is to me, I would record this as a small motorboat, I would say. So I think this looks like it's less than 15 meters. It does look like a working boat, which is outlined in large motorboat as well, but I'd say that this looks under 15 meters long, so I'd go for a small motorboat. And then for G, hopefully you've got it now, the sailing vessel with the sails up, so SV. One more with a awesome drone video from David Thompson. This is a small motorboat. I bet you've all got it by now. SM, that would be. And we're moving on to another small motorboat in I, and then in J. This is a cool one. So this would count as a very large vessel, a military vessel. But often these guys don't transmit their location on AIS data, so that's an interesting one to pick up in future, that military vessels won't tend to appear on marine traffic, neither will fisheries protection vessels. So you could put some identifying markers, maybe M860 in your vessel name, or you could even write that looks like a military vessel. So what's going to happen to all this data that I'm asking you guys to collect? So this is going to be combined with AIS, so the large vessel data that I mentioned that we were collecting, and it's also going to be combined with time-lapse footage. So have a look at the right-hand corner. There's a video collected from Pittenweem of a small vessel out there, and that's going to be compared to like the dedicated vessel watch data. And the cameras are kind of there for when us humans can't be. So all of that's going to be combined together to give us an idea of how many small boats there are year round at all the different sites, Shorewatch sites. Alongside that, We're going to overlay that with marine mammal sightings data that you guys will have collected, along with sightings from pages like the Fourth Marine Mammals page. And that's going to give us an idea of the amount of time that marine mammals and vessels overlap over the course of a year at all the different Shorewatch sites around Scotland. So are they in the presence of vessels 10% of the time, or is it 95% of the time? And does that change over the course of a year? So what do I need from you? So we need to do at least 10 hours of these dedicated vessel watches a month at each Shorewatch site. So it sounds like a lot, but actually a few picnics a month and that'll soon fly by. And if you can work together in your teams from each site to try and get that completed, that'd be fantastic. It's going to be tougher in the winter months when it's less sunny and you need 5 more layers, but I really hope that we can keep the momentum up to get this data in year round. So I'm relying on you guys all around the coast to get this in. So you're going to be able to upload your watch sheets to the Shorewatch database, or otherwise you can email them to Alice, who coordinates the WDC database. There's her email on there, or to myself, so with my emails on there as well. And also direct any questions to me or Alice if you've got any about anything to do with these dedicated vessel watches. So happy watching. So that just leaves me to say thank you to you guys. Thank you to MAST and to the Heriot Watt Annual Fund that have funded this project. If you want to find out more, we've got a website, the link's just on here. And just to say a big thank you to the collaborators, but most of all to all you volunteers that are going to be helping out contribute to this data and to the question of just how much do vessels overlap with marine mammals around Scotland.